in my mind, I'm always like, if there's a mountain, I'm gonna freaking climb it. But I do think a big part of what drives most entrepreneurs is some kind of is the pain that we carry is the noise inside our heads. There's a place deep inside of you where the consciousness touches the energy and the energy touches the consciousness. That's where your work is. From that place, you let go. We kind of talked about this last time, right? How our thoughts, beliefs, decisions, all of that can become very automatic, and they can become automatically negative, which is even worse. And thinking about where that comes from, a lot of it is external noise. So parents, teachers, whoever's kind of in your environment growing up, a lot of times they tell you like how to be and who to be and try to correct you and change your behavior. And so a lot of that ends up being critical or negative. My dad was even a professional quality assurance manager for IBM. So he got paid lots of money to tell people that what they did wasn't good enough and like give them a score. And I remember explicitly deciding like, I will not go into QA just because how it affected me, right? But that's one example. Another example is just talking politics all the time, right? A lot of that is just pointing fingers and blaming other people and us versus them mentality, which interestingly enough, like you kind of need an us to build community and support and motivation in people, but that really quickly builds like a versus them. And now you have this whole separation thing. And then my older sister is autistic. So
Oh,
my dad was always telling her to like shut up and what to do and how to behave and stuff. And so me growing up just witnessing that, I obviously just internalized that there's a certain way to be and that you have to be that way. And it was just repetitive. And then a lot of music I listened to was negative. I listened to a lot of heavy metal, hard rock, and the lyrics and a lot of those are not usually positive and uplifting.
dude, did you ever listen to Linkin Park?
Oh, all the time.
Dude, I fucking love Linkin Park, but I can't really listen to it because all the lyrics are so depressing.
A lot of them, dude, and it's funny you say that because when I was in middle school, I used to sing along, I would know the lyrics to the songs and everything, but I had no idea what it actually meant and what they were actually singing about. And now in my adult life, especially now that I've done some of the work, I listen to those songs and I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
I
it's
holy shit, like
it's
I get it,
tough, dude. I like,
you know?
man, the music is so good, but it's like I can't listen to this because this is like, even though I know it's not me, like still it's getting into my subconscious and it's all fucking negative. It's all depressed, like
Yep.
gnarly. And then it makes me think too, because there was a lot of that music when I was coming up, and there's still a lot of
Hmm.
that music. And it makes me wonder if like people are kind of feeding themselves these ideas and beliefs all the time.
Yeah. And it's a double-edged sword because people relate with it, right? Music is designed to be emotional, right? Music and movies are like two of the main things, like in art. But music is designed to be emotional. And so people like connection and they need that, right? It's like a human need, like Tony Robbins talks about. And that's one way they connect with somebody, and that somebody is the band. It's easier to connect with people on like the hurts and the pains and the negative emotions rather than the positive emotions. And so a lot of that's what's out there,
Yeah, it
you
makes
know. But
sense.
but when we're like young kids and blank slates enough, and that's what we listen to. Anyway, I look back and now I'm like, damn, really? Yeah. So when I started, I kind of talked about this at BNP, right? When I started out getting into entrepreneurship, like no wonder my mindset was like, I can't do this. There was just all of this crap that I'd been programmed for what, 2 decades, 2.5 decades at that point. All very, very close people, right? Like my dad, my mom, parents, and then music, which is like highly emotional. And I love the energy of it too, right? So I'm very passionate about music. So all this really like emotional stuff, all very negative.
Pretty amazing that you like stuck with entrepreneurship despite that, like
Yeah.
you just kept something in you was like, well, I'm gonna keep going anyway.
Well, so here's an interesting thing. One, I've always been ambitious in my mind, I'm always like, if there's a mountain, I'm going to freaking climb it. I want to see the view. So there's that part of me. And I think about why I have that. And it's either just because it's naturally a part of me, which is, I think, true, but also the equal and opposite reactions is like the first law of physics. And it's what Alex Hormozy talks about this too, right? Where people if your goals are up here, if you are really striving for something, chances are you have something just as heavy like down here weighing you down, some pain, something. And Hormozy talks about how like, yeah, the people that are the most successful have like deep insecurities. And so when I look at my history from what you just said, like I've always had this ambitious drive, and that I wouldn't word it in the way Alex does, but I guess like you could word it that way, of like that thinking you're better than everybody else. And then there's that deep pain, trauma, insecurities, right? Shame, whatever you want to call it. So it was
Yeah.
cool to hear his reel on that, because I was like, dude, that's what I've been thinking, you know?
That's
Um,
interesting. So do you think the core driver of that ambition is because you see a mountain and you want to climb it? Like you see that it's possible, so you want to do it?
yeah, I think it's a combination of things. I think part of it is the kind of ambitious drive of always wanting to improve and do better and see the view. um, with a literal mountain, like literally the view. Like I love a good view. And with entrepreneurship, it's the same thing. If you can make money to then you have like a better view, like a different view of life, right? Where imagine you're at the top of a mountain, right? You see everyone else below you, not in a I'm better than all of you kind of way, just like I have a much different perspective. And in our society, it's just like the grind, the 9 to 5, the script, the rat race, right? But I do think a big part of what drives most entrepreneurs is some kind of pain. It's just deep, it's subconscious. And that's a pattern that I've definitely seen. It's just not always talked about because it's
Mhm.
uncomfortable.
Well, yeah, and I think I think most of us probably aren't really consciously aware of those things. We might
Yeah.
think we know why we do things, but I think often we do them for some other reasons. We
Yeah.
just rationalize what we've already done, you know.
Yeah. The more of this work you do, and that's why like the walk the mind exercise is so interesting, because you start to find, why do I actually believe this? Where did this come from?
Yeah, I'm excited for that one.
And you're not going to get it right away, like the first time, the first session. That's why but like it's a week per one, so that you can iterate and do it multiple times, then a week for the next one and do it multiple times. But even so, this, like, if you keep doing this for years, you'll keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper insights, because you'll pick the low hanging fruit, but there's always going to be, some high hanging fruit. They're like, okay, I can see that one. Like, I can't quite reach it. So you just got to keep going. So as we start to get closer to like why we're talking about all of the beliefs and stuff and how it pertains to like the Mindworx exercises, there's a really good book called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. But there's one line in that book, which when I read it, I was like, oh, so true, which is the pain that we carry is the noise inside our heads. And after I read that, like, yeah, it totally makes sense. But after a while, I started to try and figure out, how is this, like, why is this true? And you know how when you touch a hot stove, you're going to like pull your hand back and react. Well, that touching a hot stove is clearly very uncomfortable. And so as you go through life and you have painful experiences that are uncomfortable, you kind of put up this little burner over here. Like, there's a burner here, don't touch it. And it's subconscious. Like, you don't really know it's there. And so you have all these little burners, and then you have one thought, and it just like plinkos around all these things inside your head. And then you get noise. And so all these burners are like insecurities, fears, doubts, limiting beliefs, whatever events happened and whatever you made to be true for you, right, based on that event or whatever it was. And so this is why I couldn't stop thinking about that girl for frickin' 2 years, because it was just like this, literally all the time. I was driving myself crazy. And so where's the work? How do we do that? Right. You already know it's down to the energy stuff, but This guy, again, Michael Singer, has this quote from the book. There's a place deep inside of you where the consciousness touches the energy and the energy touches the consciousness. That's where your work is. And so that's what we're doing with the exercises, right? With Mindworx. And so now that we know that the energy is where the work is, what are we actually going to do with it? The idea is to remove all of the things we don't want. So I love this quote. When Michelangelo was asked about how he made the statue of David, he said, "It's simple. I just removed everything that is not David." Right? We have all these like burners, all these beliefs, all these insecurities, but our like best self is under all of that. And if we can just start removing these things one by one, little by little, chipping away at them, right? You're going to become better and more authentic and more intuitive. To do this, we're going to remove the energy behind the pain that we carry, behind the anxiety, the ineffective decisions, so that we'll start making better decisions that are in alignment with the best versions of ourselves.